Hello and welcome to Why Wasn't It Better? I am your host, Patrick Narms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
And we are here today to discuss the film Chariots of Fire. It won Best Picture and gave us one of the most iconic movie themes ever. It told a story of faith, ambition, and Olympic glory, and it's former President Joe Biden's favorite film. But does Chariots of Fire still hold up? Today on Why Wasn't It Better, we dive into the slow-motion triumphs, the historical liberties, and whether this 80s sports movie truly deserved gold or if it just got lucky at the finish line. Let's break it down. Joining us today is a show regular, Nathan Perry. Welcome back.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Am I a regular at this point?
Absolutely.
I guess I'm fairly regular.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been here for every season at this point. Minus
Except
maybe season
I think
one.
season one. I
Season
wasn't
one
here.
doesn't
Yeah. So I think absolutely you're a season regular at this point.
Okay. I like it. Slotting me in. And we're here for some chariots.
This is why I wanted you on this episode, because of just how riveting this film is, and I knew you'd love it.
Yeah. And I'd really bring the energy, right?
I
Bring
hope.
the fire.
Yeah,
Bring
I
the
hope
fire.
so.
Yeah. Bring the fire.
Bring the fire.
I like it.
Yes. Well, Chariots of Fire, it tells the story of the British success at a much older Olympics, the Paris Games of 1924. Anton, it probably would have made sense to cover this film last summer when it was the 100th anniversary of these Olympic Games, which also happened to be in Paris, but we didn't do that, so whatever.
Yeah, we didn't want to overshadow Steph Curry's amazing game.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't want to make too much sense. So this rousing film is based on the mixed fortunes of two ambitious runners, Eric Liddell, a Christian missionary from Scotland who refused to run on Sundays, and Harold Abrahams, a Jewish athlete battling anti-Semitism. Chariots of Fire was released on March 30th, 1981 by Allied Stars Limited, Enigma Productions, The Ladd Company, 20th Century Fox, and Warner Brothers. It was directed by Hugh Hudson. The screenplay was written by Colin Welland, starring Ben Cross, Ian Charleston, Nigel Havers, Ian Holm, John Gielgud, Lindsay Anderson, Cheryl Campbell, the Borg Queen, Alice Krieg, Brad Davis, and Dennis Christopher. The budget was $5.5 million. Adjusted for inflation, that is $19 million. And the box office was $59 million. That is $203 million adjusted for inflation. So, Nathan, as the guest, other than the fact that the Borg Queen herself is in this film, which apparently amuses you quite a bit.
You drop it in, right?
Yeah, you drop it in.
It's not in the show notes, so I'm just like, okay.
It's a little... it's a little gem. I thought
It's
was
just
really
something you
interesting.
keep in mind. It's something you keep in mind
Yeah.
at all times. Patrick can always pull out who the Borg Queen
The
is.
Borg Queen.
I try to keep some in my back pocket. But
Okay.
as the guest, Nathan, when I offered this film to you, why did you agree to do it, despite having not seen it?
Well, one, I just like hanging with you guys. So let's be real.
It's a great answer.
I enjoy hanging with the boys and doing a little podcast. So I enjoy being here. Chariots of Fire is it's not usually like my go-to type of thing. So I didn't really have a ton of context about it. However, it's a movie whose name I knew, right? Of course, I had heard of a film, Chariots of Fire, and I just thought it would be, you know what, this is a little bit outside of my usual kind of just more standard, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever stuff, whatever I watch. So I was like, oh, you know what? I don't really think a sports drama is where I'm at most of the time, but let's do something a little different. And hey, it was a sports movie.
It is a sports movie.
It is.
It's a sports movie.
And Anton, the reason why I selected it for this season is something we started last season on the pod, is the so-called worst Best Picture winners. We covered Out of Africa. We covered Braveheart, which Nathan was the guest on. This was a film that I saw as a kid, but I didn't remember much about it. I was telling Nathan before we started recording, I think I saw this in school, and I don't even know what class it would have been in, but I hadn't seen it since, so I didn't remember much about it. This won the 1981 Academy Award for Best Picture. It won 4 awards in total: screenplay, costume design, and original score.
It's a film that I recognize first as one that we played in band. I think there's a lot of school bands that played the theme to Chariots
Sure.
of Fire.
Sure.
Then I saw the film, I want to say it was in high school, but even then it didn't really stick with me as much as other sports dramas I've seen in my life. I think that place in my heart will always be taken by the Mighty Ducks, but that is a very different film from Chariots of Fire.
Very different film. Didn't win Best Picture.
No.
Funny you mentioned the music, because that's probably what's best known about this film. I think pretty rare for a film. The theme music, I think, is far more famous than the film itself.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when we talk about this film, maybe that will uncover why.
Maybe it will. This blew me away in the research. The instrumental theme hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1982. That's nuts.
That is really...
Right?
It's
I
like,
don't-
what were people listening to? Maybe a bit of ABBA at the time.
I mean, that would have been Hall & Oates, The Police,
Yeah,
Michael
there's
Jackson,
a lot of good music
the
in
theme to
81.
Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why not mix it in? I can think of... That's a great playlist, right? You just
I
belt
put
it
this
out.
on my running playlist as a result of covering
That's
this.
a little...
But-
that's a little on the nose there.
I was like, why not? I'm going to do
Okay.
it.
on your
This-
running playlist?
Yes,
This
I
and
did.
Gonna Fly now, I'd rather go with the Rocky theme.
Are those
Okay.
the only two sports movies to win Best Picture? Do you count $1 Million Baby?
You got to count $1 Million Baby. That is a sports film.
It's a depressing film, but
Seabiscuit didn't win.
didn't win. Nominated.
Yeah.
There we go. I think it is just those three. I was actually curious enough.
It's got to be a
I
short
was going
list.
to Google.
Yeah.
No, I Googled sports movies to win Best Picture. Exactly. It was those three. Rocky, Chariots of Fire, $1 Million Baby.
And of course, I mentioned it in the teaser, Anton. This is former President Joe Biden's favorite movie.
Nice. This
Which
is not
I'd-
a political pod.
It's not a political pod. I have to say, it's an incredibly sincere selection from him because, well, I don't want to spoil my opinion of this movie, but I think he's the only one.
Consider it their favorite movie.
I can't imagine anyone selecting
He
this
had
as
a-
their favorite film.
I love it if he had a short list and it was this film and then for whatever reason Predator 2.
He just he makes it real specific, like not Predator 1. I don't like jungles.
No, but I love seeing the Predator just take people out in inner city LA.
Yeah, I'm more of an LA guy.
Okay.
I wish we could just have an animation of that in the short. That'd be hilarious.
I don't know why it's so funny, but it
I
is.
think, do you really? I don't think he's in LA. I don't think.
I don't know. He seems pretty Hollywood. Every exit he does, he just throws on some shades.
Oh, good point. Maybe there is a little bit more there.
Let's get into the production history.
Okay. All right.
Producer David Putnam was looking for a story in the mold of A Man for All Seasons regarding someone who follows his conscience, and he felt that sport provided clear situations in this sense. He discovered Eric Little's story by accident in 1977 when he happened upon an approved history of the Olympic Games, a reference book on the Olympics. He hired Colin Welland to write a screenplay. Welland did a ton of research. He took out advertisements in London newspapers seeking memories of the 1924 Olympics. He went to the National Film Archives for pictures and footage, and he interviewed everyone involved who was still alive. That could not have been a long list in 1977. The character
Longer than it would be today.
Yeah, I think the list is 0 today.
Probably.
The character Lord Lindsay, played by Nigel Havers, Anton, you know who I'm talking about, who also played Ronnie in A Passage to India. I was delighted to see him. Did you immediately spot him, Anton, running on the beach? Everyone else is running pretty seriously, and he's just like...
Yes. On a different pod, we would joke about it.
As you know, Ronnie's doing splendidly. So his character was based on a real-life person named Lord Burleigh, who refused to have his name used in the film because of liberties taken with the screenplay. Can't imagine why, because this is a pretty inoffensive film. There was never a race in which Abrahams beat Burleigh in this feat, as the film suggests. In fact, Abrahams never attempted the Great Court Run at Cambridge.
Interesting.
It is Cambridge, right? Before I get that wrong multiple times throughout the pod. It's not Oxford.
Cambridge, my friend.
Yeah, Cambridge.
Yeah, Cambridge. Okay, I thought so.
Yes, it is Cambridge, but I
Okay.
was just looking at something that was indicating...
They filmed somewhere else, I think, but it's set at Cambridge. I'll have to edit all this out.
No,
We can't be this unsure on the podcast.
No, yeah. No, it was just interesting because I was just looking up that guy that I was mentioning who got like 6th place in the race, and I was saying was Montague.
Aubrey.
Yeah, he it mentions that he's attended Oxford.
And this film's just getting it all wrong, isn't it?
I don't know. That's definitely is it Oxford? Is it?
Let's plow ahead. The film's title was inspired by the line, "Bring me my chariot of fire," from the poem Jerusalem by William Blake. And the original phrase, chariot of fire, is from the second book of Kings, the second chapter, verse 11, as well as the 6th chapter, verse 17 in the Bible. The original backers of the film sold the project to Mohammed Al-Fayed's Allied Stars. And I wanted to bring this up because Mohammed Al-Fayed's son, Dodi, was one of the executive producers on this film. He would later become... Yeah, this is nuts. He would later become famous by dating Princess Diana and dying in the car crash with her. Also, if... Anton, when you eventually get to, I believe it's either season 5 or season 6 of The Crown, they show Dodi and his father celebrating the Oscar win for this film.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Putnam chose Hugh Hudson, a multiple award-winning advertising and documentary filmmaker who had never helmed a feature film to direct.
So 20th Century Fox, which put up half of the production budget in exchange for distribution rights outside of North America, insisted on having a couple of notable American names in the cast. Thus, a small parts of the 2 American champion runners, Jackson Schultz and Charlie Paddock, were cast with recent headliners Brad Davis and Dennis Christopher. The producers intentionally added profanity to the film to avoid a G rating because they thought people would associate G rating with a movie for children. Ian Charleson wrote Eric Little's speech to the post-race working men's crowd at the Scotland versus Ireland races. Charleson, who had studied the Bible intensively in preparation for the role, told director Hugh Hudson that he didn't feel the portentous and sanctimonious scripted speech was either authentic or inspiring. Hudson and Welland allowed him to write words he personally found inspirational instead. All of the actors portraying runners underwent an intensive 3-month training regimen with a running coach. Sean Connery was offered a cameo role. He had to turn it down as he was filming Outland. Kenneth Branagh and Stephen Fry appear as extras in the film. And many of the Edwardian-era costumes the production tried to rent were already in use by Warren Beatty's Reds. Filming took place from April to June 1980, entirely in England and Scotland. Cambridge University refused to allow filming rights, so all the interior Cambridge scenes were filmed at Eton College. The beach scenes showed the athletes running towards a Carlton Hotel at Broadstairs, Kent, and were actually filmed at St. Andrews in Scotland. Recomposer Vangelis was chosen to compose the score. Hudson made the choice for Vangelis and for a modern score. Quote, "I knew we needed a piece which was anachronistic to the period to give it a feel of modernity. It was a risky idea, but we went with it rather than have a period symphonic score." End quote.
I have thoughts.
It sits at an 84% Rotten Tomatoes score, and a stage adaptation of Chariots of Fire was launched in honor of the 2012 Olympics. And that is our production notes for Chariots of Fire.
Let's talk why wasn't it better. Number one reason. So this is a sports drama. There are sports in this film.
Running.
Where's the drama?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's certain... Man, it's so interesting because I immediately was like, this doesn't feel like other sports movies I've seen. It has certain drama elements, but it's not like none of the standard sports drama things I would expect from a Remember the Titans or a Rocky or something like that.
It feels very biographical. I'll give it that.
That I was really interested because I don't think I knew. One thing I wanted to comment from the production history is the director being so familiar with being a documentarian made this feel very documentary-like now that I'm getting to replay it. So I thought that was really maybe something to think on.
It's a good point you bring up, Nathan. And, to both of you, I didn't think about this until like just now, but I do want to give it some points for being original, because I think you're right, Nathan. I haven't really seen anything quite like it. A film like this, or any film, when it does something unique, I do want to give it some points for that. But there is not a lot to the story.
I agree. Yeah.
What is I guess when we try to think of a sports drama, and a lot of the, I guess, draw is what the conflict in the film is. And whether it's a film like Invictus, you named Rocky, Remember the Titans, heck, even Million Dollar Baby, the conflicts are very clear. And then here, there's more of a lingering implied conflict around anti-Semitism, self-doubt, but then otherwise it just felt very like watch along the story.
Yeah, I agree. And there's there's definitely not also a consistency with some of the drama. You know, you would think that, especially as how the movie, like if I read a blurb about it before, and it definitely was trying to highlight Little and Abraham's, like both their stories, and really suggesting that there's a lot more overlap and things, and they just feel like, it feels like a bunch of disparate stories that aren't really overlapping or intersecting in any way. They just happen to occur at the same Olympic Games. But it doesn't even, anyway, it was just kind of where it feels like maybe, honestly, may have preferred just picking one and fleshing it out more, rather than trying to do like a couple of these different stories and not really being able to pick a lane, if you will. I don't know.
It is tough. You're right, Nathan, because there's no real main character, and you're not really sure who to root for. And like, you know, a lot of other sports movies, you're very clearly asked to root for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And in here, it's like for me, when I first started rewatching this, I naturally assumed, based on some of the things that I had remembered about the film, that I would be rooting for Little more. But I found Abraham's scenes far more interesting, like his stuff with Sam, you know, his coach, Sam Mustavini. I found that far more compelling.
Well, Abraham's actually like loses and has to come back and overcome failure. A common thing in sports, in a sports movie, right? A super common thing. Little never fails at anything.
Nope.
And even in his final run, and I know we're getting, it doesn't matter about it being in order, but I just remember even in his final run, his basically the biggest competitor basically just says, "You're the better, I appreciate how you're the better person. Now go win," basically.
With no setup beforehand.
Which it's like no setup, no conflict, no, hey, I know you and I didn't get along, but I really deeply, honored by, I deeply, like you, or something like that. It's just more like, hey, by the way, after all of this other stuff, now go win. And it's like, and then he won. Incredible.
And then the movie just kind of ends without real resolution, because I don't know what the conflict was to begin with. We have these two runners. Little, he doesn't want to run on the Sabbath, right? He occasionally struggles with his faith. Standing up for one's faith is obviously commendable.
Mm-hmm.
We can all agree on that.
Yeah, for sure.
The biggest conflict, which is the Olympic Committee trying to pressure him into running on the Sabbath, that didn't even happen in real life.
Some manufactured conflict, because even filmmakers recognize we need a bit more conflict here.
Yeah. But that got me thinking, if they were going to manufacture that, why not manufacture something else? But because I think the obvious one, which maybe both of you also thought, is when I first started watching this, I just assumed, I was like, well, they're obviously going to race each other in the final race at the Olympics. This is going to be pretty cool. We're going to see, because, the film kind of hints that they're rivals throughout, like sort of, not overtly, but there's that, they're like, oh, Abraham's and Little, like they're on the same Olympic team, but then they don't race each other, and it felt unfulfilling to me.
But they don't even have like they compete really, and then one gets picked over the other or something, and then it's like, hey man, like props to you, you're the better runner or something like that, right? Like, you don't have like the training camp thing where they're deciding who's going to run what event, and it's no, I want to do this event, I want to do that. It doesn't even have like what to me seems like would be cookie cutter, like paint by numbers, like sports movie conflict, which does kind of make it kind of interesting that they're not going for that. But I don't know if that's enough to say that it's like good in that sense. Like, I don't know. Absolutely. The weakest part is that I think it just doesn't really have compelling drama.
I mean,
you're kind of waiting for it. I feel like it always just is like, oh, is it there? Is the next part going to have it?
I would just say that this is the kind of film where I think the story is compelling if it's the first time you're watching it and you're learning about their story and you're following along. It does feel very novel, feels very new, and you're seeing like a couple of the best at their game. But this is the kind of film where it's presented slowly enough that every rewatch, it's diminishing returns.
I definitely would say I didn't think it was like, I thought it was a good watch. I would not be interested in rewatching it for maybe ever. Like, I don't have any reason to.
Yeah, I think you're right, Anton, because I think anyone who didn't know the background of this, if they were watching it for the first time, you are expecting these two guys to intersect at some point, and they just don't.
Yeah.
Like, did they only really speak to each other in the one scene in like the locker room, right? I think that's it.
Yeah. Like, and even then, like, that's all.
What is that? It's like, it's barely even a conversation. Little's like, good luck, and Abrahams is like, thanks.
Yeah, it's like if Larry Bird never played Johnson or Magic in the finals.
Oh, I have a building on what you just said, Anton. It's kind of like 2009, where we all wanted Kobe versus LeBron in the finals, and then we got Kobe versus Dwight Howard, and we were like, eh. We wanted it the whole season. They were the 2-1 seeds, and it was the Magic, who, actually ended up being a pretty good finals. But
everyone's always wanted to see Kobe versus LeBron.
Yeah, you wanted it, and you hated Kobe more than I did.
Yeah, but never happened.
Never happened. So who's the Kobe here? Clearly Abrahams, right?
Yeah, OG.
I don't even know basketball that well, and I would say so. Yeah,
willing to do whatever it takes. He's overcoming some anti-Semitism. Not a whole lot which is shown in this film, and that's my other issue with the lack of drama. He's talking about how he wants to overcome this anti-Semitism, and we get a handful of like remarks from secondary characters regarding his character's Jewishness, but there's never really any tangible discrimination that we see on screen.
Yeah, I think it's all kind of alluded to / I think they're expecting the viewer to be sort of bringing a lot of that in. Is my take on it. I think that, I certainly don't think the heads of the school I think they say some pretty bad crap about him. But I do agree. But I also think, like, again, that kind of goes to I don't think the movie's really interested in doing the type of thing. I think the movie's like, oh, we don't really want to show a lot of anything too stressful or complicated or conflict, honestly.
It was rated G originally.
I know.
They threw in some profanity.
So is the main piece that it's just inspiring and also surrounded by faith?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, like, in 1981, that is actually appealing to a very, very large, broad base.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, this movie made pretty good money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
When the conflict is not so controversial, but the appeal makes sense. Like, I totally get why this would do well in, like, 1981.
Speaking of Abrahams being Jewish, were either of you thrown off by the fact that his memorial service, which bookends the film, is in a church?
Good call out. I remember you texted me about
honestly
this.
Think anything about it.
Okay, well, the film doesn't make this clear, but he converted to Christianity in real life after the Olympics at some point.
All right.
I thought about it because I was like, wait a minute, why is this in a church?
That's a really good point, and also would be really interesting to, I don't know, that, again, sounds like maybe doing a whole life biography would be really interesting as a film. See where that story goes.
Almost.
Why is that happening?
Do they feel like underdogs, these two guys, to you?
That was the other thing.
Not really.
Especially Little. Little basically feels like he is the best and never ever has any sort of conflict about his at least sports like performance, and honestly his personal conflicts about running anyway. Yeah, him
Right.
especially just felt like such a non-character, or just again drama conflict really sucked out of it.
Because they weren't underdogs. They were the English were pretty favored in this Olympics. Is what I've understood. They were world-class
Interesting.
athletes. I gotta say, did you look up their times for the races?
No.
Pretty impressive considering the crappy shoes they had back then.
I don't know enough about what an effective time should be.
I don't either, but I do know that if you can run the 100 meters in like 10 point something, that's amazing.
I certainly probably can't do it.
No, I don't think you could either.
So.
I don't think any of us could.
Yeah, I can only think of 40-yard dash and wanting to have a good 40 if I'm going to enter the NFL draft.
Right, at age 30 something.
Yeah, at age 33.
Yeah, you could do it.
Shaving seconds off of my 40.
It's possible.
Yeah.
The film really picked up for me when Abrahams meets Sam Musabini.
Mr. Ian Holm.
Yeah. Great role for Ian Holm, by the way. Oscar nominated role for him, by the way.
Very, very well-deserved nomination.
Yeah, I really like him here. I thought by far their scenes together were the most compelling.
Oh, definitely. Again, I think adding to that being the only part of the story that at least fits a sort of sports drama metaphor or sports drama standard of like, hey, you got to get better, right? When do you ever see Little even like train? Like, or have to be concerned or thinking about training.
He's kind of on cruise control the whole time.
Yeah, he does feel like he's very much on cruise. He's having to figure other things out. He's never having to think about, like, the practicals. I also appreciate it because it was the one time where I was actually learning something about maybe the practicals of the sport. Because otherwise, I don't think I'd learned anything about, how running, track and field, whatever works.
Yeah,
not that a sports movie has to, but it is helpful. Can keep you engaged.
Here's a bit, though, which I think where the film missed its opportunity. They did race each other in real life.
Okay.
In competitions before the Olympics, including university meets and national championships, none of which is shown in this film.
Well, they did have the one race against each other.
Did they?
Yeah, because it's what basically triggers. It's when Abrahams is kind of pouty in the stands and is
Little's in that race?
Yeah, because he lost to
Little.
Little. He lost to Little. And then it's funny because that's when I think Musabini comes in and says, I can shave 2 seconds off your time. And Abrahams is like in the scene when they're looking at the slide deck or whatever, the slides. Is it a slide deck?
Anyway. That would have been like cutting edge technology. In
that he basically, Abrahams is concerned about Little, and Musabini's like, don't think about Little. He's not even in your like basically he's not even in your like what you run. He's gonna be a long distance runner. You're not gonna be a long distance runner. You're gonna be a sprinter. So let's do the sprints. And that's when he's like, oh, the Americans. And then that's it. At which point,
bad Americans.
At which point, the Abrahams and Little do not interact or even reference each other. I think, outside of maybe like, oh, that Abrahams is a great runner, until they like see each other in the locker room. Anyway, yes, I don't remember anything about this movie.
That was super specific.
I don't know anything. I saw it. Whatever.
I missed that detail, so
at least I'm fairly certain that that's what it is. Unless I just put it in my brain because I was like, they must race against each other at some point, right?
No, you might be right. It's just kind of interesting how this film manufactured some drama, and they had real life drama where they seemed to be much more rivals in real life, and you just didn't put it in this film.
Yeah, it is. He does beat Abrahams, at least in the film. So they get one race against each other.
It felt more like two sides of a similar coin versus really pitting them up against each other in the film.
Let's talk about the production, which is the next reason. We get flashback voiceovers.
Oh yeah, we do.
We get voiceovers seemingly on top of voiceovers. I found that pretty boring. We also get a flashback within a flashback. The film opens in 1978 at the memorial service.
Mhm.
It flashes back to the opening titles on the beach, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I'll give it props for there. And then you get a voiceover from neither one of the main characters to 4 years before that, to 1920.
Yes. So you think you're gonna follow like Albert or whatever, and he's like
Aubrey Montague.
Aubrey. Like, oh, I'm gonna tell you about these two titans that I ran with, and no, not really.
It's unique, I guess.
Yeah, the last time I saw so many flashbacks was Austin Powers and Goldmember, and that was much more effective flashbacks, I felt like.
Is Chariots of Fire like a borderline multiverse movie? I mean, it's not at all, but...
Or do you mean it's like it did Inception before Inception or something?
Kind of.
Like...
I don't understand the point of flashing back to 1924 for 30 seconds and then going back to 1920.
I know. No time was really spent in 1924.
No.
At least their training or on the beach or whatever. Their training camp thing. I always expected the movie was leading to them doing that so that you could give context to them running on the beach, but it doesn't. And then it just does the beach scene again at the end.
Yep, just present.
Because we got to do the beach scene again.
I think
a very weird choice.
That's the most iconic imagery, though.
That makes me feel like they knew it was really good, so they had to figure out how to use it. Because they spent some money and they're like, man, this is great. But they're like, where do we fit it? It's like, it's real good. We shouldn't just leave it in the middle of the movie. We need to do it the whole movie.
It really is iconic.
So let's use it twice. It's really good.
Yeah.
At the Academy Museum in Los Angeles, it was really, really cool. One of the exhibits actually has like a full screen against like a 20-foot wall. And so you see this scenes from Chariots of Fire were interplayed with the running scene, and it's just on the beach. It just looks gorgeous.
I'm clowning on the flashback within a flashback a little. I actually do like how the film goes from the memorial service into what's essentially one very long flashback. I like how it's kind of, the whole film was presented to us as like a kind of a memory. That I found unique about it in a good way. And I'm pretty sure I had no memory of the memorial service the first time I saw it as a kid. I'm pretty sure I saw like an abridged version of this film because I always just remembered the film opening with the beach, the opening titles. It's a great pairing of music and cinematography. We'll talk about the score a little bit later. Performances, I do think the two leads are very good. Ian Charleston as Little and Ben Cross as Harold Abrahams. I think they're both really well acted performances.
I thought they did great.
Yeah, for capturing the period and the speaking cadence, absolutely.
Yeah, the real life Little. I don't know if either of you read a little bit about him. I mean, the film goes into his personal life a bit. Really, someone to admire.
Or especially, going and his missionary work in China and stuff like that through real terrible circumstances.
His struggle in the film is, I think, centered around what I thought was probably the most interesting scene in the film, which is where he meets with the Prince of Wales and the rest of the Olympic Committee, and they are trying to pressure him into, running on the Sabbath. And I do like this line that he gives: "The impertinence lies, sir, with those who seek to influence a man to deny his beliefs."
Yeah,
Little stood on business.
Yes, and I agree. I think it's like the best. It's the most tense scene, I think, for a film that doesn't have a lot of that. So I think you're right. It stands out.
And it was fake. It never happened.
Yeah, well,
but that's okay because it's good in this film.
Yeah.
So, quick question: knowing that there is a lot of conflict here built around pressures around religion, particularly even for Christianity, I was curious, was this, knowing everyone on this podcast comes from a faith-based background, did either of you have this, I guess, presented to you with that faith angle, or kind of coming from the faith community?
I didn't even know that was part of the movie until I think you, Pat, mentioned it to me or something like that, or you gave me like a blurb about it. So I had no engagement that this is like a faith related to faith or Christian expression.
My answer to you, Anton, would be like slightly. Like that's like slightly. That is why I thought I would identify and find Little's scenes more compelling than Abraham's going into this because of that angle. Like on paper, I think that interests me more than just someone getting a trainer. But there's far less. It's just other than this one scene, which is interesting. There's not really a conflict to it. But unlike Abraham's, we see him lose a race and he's devastated and he has to get, he hires Sam Musabini because he's willing to go the extra mile. I think his character's more interesting. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, which I don't even know if it answered your question.
No. I mean, I'll even just say for me, it was not one that was presented as, hey, like, watch this. It's great for when you think about like faith in this context, but it does make me appreciate it with a different angle.
For sure.
Yeah. And I definitely went in, I think like you, Pat, like, I certainly don't think Eric Little's character is bad or like anything or like really off-putting or something like that. But I think I went in expecting a little bit more from that story, and certainly the challenges that might come from that. In some ways, I actually thought it was a little bit more interesting early on in that story, where, hey, the conflict between his missionary work versus, hey, actually the mission wants you to keep doing this. But it very quickly just kind of fell. He was like, yeah, sure. All right. That sounds good. And I'll keep doing that. And like that could have been, I'm not saying it would have been accurate to real life, which might come into the whole director being a documentarian who doesn't want to deviate or diverge too much from, accuracy. I don't know how true that is. That's me projecting. But makes me think like that would be another source that I think of having maybe some conflict or some, hey, am I really doing this for me? Am I doing this for what the mission wants because it's getting them attention or influence or something like that? I think these are spaces that it could be really compelling. But again, like a lot of things with Little's storyline, it just sort of, nope, we're good. We kind of just move forward past it.
Seems like the biggest conflict for him was dealing with his sister wife.
Yes.
Who I'm joshing about this, but like I just assumed until halfway through the movie it was like his wife or his girlfriend, and then I was it's his sister. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
There was expressions of closeness that are probably in 1924 appropriate, or would be maybe appropriate within a context that made it somewhat unclear,
Good way to put it.
Holding arms like that when you're after your 20s, like locking arms together with a sibling, we don't, at least in America, we don't do that. I mean, nope. Anton does it with his sister all the time, but that's, a different
It's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing. It's a Filipino thing. So it's...
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask. Really quick before we can move on, something that, for whatever reason, being a history nerd, fascinated me. During the scene where they're trying to pressure Little into running, Lord Birkenhead calls the Prince of Wales David, which I found really strange because I don't know why he would in front of other people. It sent me down a rabbit hole. I was trying to figure out, who is this Lord Birkenhead? Was he really friends with the Prince of Wales at the time? And he was. Of course, this was years before the Prince of Wales would, become king for less than a year and then give up the throne because he wanted to marry someone. I don't know where I'm going with this or why this interests me so much, but I just wanted to bring it up. I'm like, well, he called him David in front of other people. That's really strange.
It's not proper.
It's not
proper.
Not. And ChatGPT told me it's not proper.
You confirmed?
I did.
ChatGPT.
Yes. Like, why would he call him David?
Yeah, I think it's definitely supposed to add to the, I think, tenseness in a way of the scene, but that sounds like not a thing that would have happened. But again, the whole scene,
that whole sequence was definitely interesting, and I did think Little was a little naive. Remember where Birkenhead's like, the Prince of Wales wants to meet you, and he's like, no, it wouldn't be right. It's like, why?
I don't know. I'm not British. Maybe if I was British in the 1920s, I would think that way. I'd be like,
maybe
I can't meet with the king.
I can't meet the future king.
The future king,
even if he is a future, pseudo-Nazi supporter.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Not untrue.
Not untrue.
Well, They really go into that the first season of The Crown.
Oh, you got that far?
Oh yeah.
It's an incredible episode.
Yeah.
How far along are you on your Crown journey?
I'm
Anton?
almost done with series 1.
Okay. So you like it?
I do. It's just now it's, what is it? Finding the time to revisit, which I will.
So you're pro The Crown, Pat? I know we're getting off topic
yeah.
for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorite shows.
All right.
Yeah, it's also more compelling when you know they go further and further into the timeline, even like Princess Diana.
Yep. The series ends with the marriage of Charles to Camilla in 2005.
Wow.
That's the last episode.
Spoilers.
Yeah. It's like, wow, didn't know that happened. Moving on, Ben Cross, he plays Harold Abrahams.
Yeah.
I've seen him in other stuff. He was the villain in First Night. He played Sarek, Spock's father, in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot. I like him here.
Yeah, very classic British actor.
Yeah. There's 2 Star Trek crossovers in this film.
Well,
Not
Borg
one.
Queen.
The Borg Queen. That's his girlfriend, the Borg Queen.
That's his queen.
And
That's his queen.
and we have Bilbo Baggins.
Yes.
We do?
Do we have any other Lord of the Rings connections in this? There has to be at least one other one, right?
Well,
I haven't looked it up, but
that's a good point. There probably is, just by degree of separation.
John Gielgud probably would have participated in Lord of the Rings if he wasn't dead when those films came out.
But yeah, Ian Holm as Bilbo, of course.
Yeah. I found this ironic about his character, right? So the college and like the establishment, so to speak, they don't like that he's hiring a professional trainer. They think that it's like setting a bad precedent, right? It's like, look what happened to the Olympics like 100 years later. It's like the most commercial, corrupt thing there is in sports. It's like, it was just so different. You know, watching a period piece about the Olympics then, it's like just completely alien from what it is today.
The fact that training in that way would have been that intense individual training would have been considered just anathema.
They're
like,
outraged that he hired a professional trainer. They're like, how could you do this? Like, how could you embarrass the college like this?
Yeah.
I mean, look at Lord Lindsley. He's doing splendidly. And he uses Noe champagne on his steeplechase training. Do you? It's a flex using... I think I texted that to you, Anton. I'm like, dude, he's using Moe.
That is a flex.
That is a flex.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely interesting because it's not something you think about today of like, oh, being an amateur is like important, or was important. I would think nowadays, of course you're going to have someone train you. Like everyone gets like trained in that capacity.
Not that one guy that did the pistol shooting, and he looked like he just...
The guy from Turkey?
Yeah, the guy from Turkey that just looked like he just shoots cans in his backyard, but he's a wicked good shot.
He's like, I don't need Sam Musabini. He's a wicked good shot. No, but this is the best. It definitely is the best part of the film. Their scenes together are great. Sam Musabini's a great character. Ian Holm does a great job with it. I didn't realize before he got nominated for it. Deserve it.
Yeah. No, great. I mean, it's the place where there's most kind of drama and that classic sports drama stuff of, hey, you got to get better, you got to overcome this. You get, Musabini's character being like, hey, I get to win through this guy. Like, hey, I'm not doing this just for you. I'm also doing this for me, kind of thing. You get complicated characters through this. I think it's great.
In general, I liked all the performances. Everyone's playing it pretty straight. No one's overacting. I mean, I think Ian Holm probably gives the showiest performance in the film, and it's I think warranted for his character. I don't know if anybody's amazing.
A lot of people are just sort of like were there.
Everyone was very pleasant in this film.
Yes.
It's such an inoffensive film. Like it
is.
Like, do you think he needed like Mickey from Rocky?
No, that's too American.
Gotta watch out for this guy, Rocky. He's a world-class stick man.
Maybe could have used a little jazzing up.
Yeah, maybe. We do get Nigel Havers, who plays Lord Lindsay, and Anton. He's a favorite of ours.
Yes, he is.
Ronnie. We talked about him earlier.
Can one hope that there still is a posh, the folks that kind of speak with that upper class posh tone?
Oh, there are.
Okay.
There are definitely people that still speak like this.
Except
if you ever see some
modern things.
Yeah, if so last summer when I was unemployed, I had a lot of free time, and I was
Yeah.
at one point I was watching like the British version of C-SPAN, and they were interviewing members of like the House of Lords, and I can confirm there are definitely people that still talk like this today.
There's just something fun to me to think about those folks and everyday things like, oh, can you please pass the remote? I want to watch some Netflix.
Just park the car over there. No, I love it. We don't want to clown on this too much. It's not like the long gone transatlantic accent.
Oh, I want that back.
I wish it got brought back. Nathan knows what we're talking about, right?
You can bring it back.
Yeah.
We just got to start next episode. Why wasn't it better? Everyone's transatlantic.
James Mason. As you know, Ronnie's doing splendidly.
Oh, father.
Anton, is there a film that we're covering coming up where we can... Dial M for Murder.
Anything with Katharine Hepburn in it?
Dial M for Murder. Have you watched it yet?
Not yet.
It has some incredible transatlantic accents. It's from Grace Kelly and the guy who plays her husband. He's a Welsh actor, but he's just doing this accent the whole time. Darling, I couldn't possibly. Anyway, we're getting a little off track here, and I know Nathan is on a bit of a time crunch.
Well, we're still gonna finish it out.
Oh, we're gonna finish it out. Are the two masters of the college a couple?
They may be married to women, but they do have a relationship together that
they act like they bicker like a couple, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, I get that. I get when you're work husband.
Work husband.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's Billy Crystal and Steve Martin.
It'd be funny if they were in this instead of John Gielgud and the other guy. They're just the masters of Trinity College.
That would be funny.
But it was Billy Crystal's character from A Princess Bride.
Super out there, but I'll take it.
I don't know if I made that connection. There's not really a connection, but so the slow motion in this film, what do we think? Excessive?
Hey, they committed.
They did commit. Yeah, I don't think it was. Maybe it wasn't excessive because I'm trying to think back how many actual races did they do in this movie.
4?
So excessive, maybe.
Well,
It definitely felt like a style, and I think if they had done it one more time, I think I would have been too much. But I'm not saying I was enjoying it throughout it. It definitely was a weird touch.
What if the meeting where Abrahams has dinner with the two masters of the college, what if that was in slow motion?
That would be too much.
Yeah, that would be way too much. Way too much. It's weird. I'm kind of curious because it's hard to not take 20, whatever year, 2025. It's 2020. I knew that.
Yeah, yeah.
And look at this movie and be like, slow motion. So like that's so like overdone and like I don't know the context in 1981 if it felt weird or if it felt more quote fresh or different or interesting. Whereas now it's like a thing that gets parodied, right? Is to play like Chariots of Fire over like a slow motion action sequence, but it's like inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
I don't have that context to where was it okay in its own context? Now it feels a little like feels a little cliche, but is this where the cliche comes from?
I think it's a bit much during some of the races because it frankly made some of the races more boring, but I think it's incredibly effective during the title scene on the beach. And I actually found this in some of the trivia I dug up for the film. That was actually a reshoot. They had filmed it a couple weeks before. They discovered that there was a problem with the camera lens, and on the day of the reshoot, while they were filming it, you had the Whitecaps on the ocean behind them, which looks amazing.
Yeah,
and it's just a great example of something got messed up, they had to correct it, and it ended up being way better. Like it really is the most iconic thing from the film, like no doubt.
Yeah, no, definitely. And they knew it too, which is why they did it twice.
Another observation I had: everyone just dressed better then.
Yeah.
So that's also just to loop it all the way back to I think the production history. I think you had the note about they were trying to rent outfits, but some other movie had it.
Reds.
But this also won Best Costume.
The individual.
I don't know enough about the how it works. I just maybe those are very different and distinct things. But
well, the two films take place right around the same time.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons. And the individual who won for this, Milena Canonero, she's won, I think, 3 Oscars. Like a really, dare I say, like the John Williams of costume designers or something like that. Like she's been nominated a ton of times. It might be a little hyperbolic, but I'd say deserve.
I liked all the looks. I mean, I remember the early sequence when they're at the college and they're seeing all the different groups, like the college groups, for the different activities and things. And I was just, even at that point, I was like, man, everyone's dressed. The costuming in this movie is great. And yeah.
All the different ties.
There also wasn't as many alternatives to the fashion of the day.
No, people generally, even working class people, when they bought clothes, they just bought them to last. So there was, like, fast fashion wasn't really a thing.
Right.
You know, you couldn't pop over to Forever 21 or whatever the kids wear these days.
H&M.
Express.
There was no hot topic.
There's no hot man. Okay, so you redo this movie, but all the costuming is from Hot Topic.
Be awkward. Would it fit better with the Vangelis score?
I'm just imagining a bunch of goths running down the beach.
When you're like randomly attacked by electric guitar in a scene where you're like, it's going, and then all of a sudden the electric guitar comes in and you're like, what? I didn't expect this. I didn't know this was going to be here.
They didn't have synthesizers in 1924.
They did not.
All right. Well, here's the question, which we did the same thing with you on Braveheart, Nathan. Should this have won Best Picture? The other nominees were Atlantic City, On Golden Pond, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Reds.
So we referenced Reds earlier, right? Because we talked about Warren Beatty.
Stickman.
And other greats in that film include Jack Nicholson, Diane Keaton,
Gene Hackman, R.I.P.
I've never seen Atlantic City. Anyone here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Burt Lancaster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good film.
On Golden Pond?
Really good movie.
Okay.
Henry Fonda's final role, Katharine Hepburn. We mentioned her earlier. She's in that. Jane Fonda's in it. It's a really good movie.
And of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
One of the greatest films ever made. I mean, I can go first. Absolutely not. This film shouldn't have won Best Picture. I'm baffled that this one. I understand why some people would have voted for it. This is kind of an awards baity type of movie.
Sure.
But Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's obviously my pick. I'm very biased. I mean, it's one of my favorite films. I mean, Reds deserve to win over this. On Golden Pond deserved to win over this. I don't know about Atlantic City. I haven't seen that in a while. But I think this is probably one of the most forgotten Best Picture winners.
I think, especially at the time, the political power around this being a joint effort with 20th Century Fox and Warner Brothers probably also pushed this particular film versus Raiders of the Lost Ark, which that was Universal?
Paramount.
So Paramount, of course, also a big player, but when you have two of the big ones.
Interesting.
So
Let's see
what would your answer
politics
be to this, though, Anton? Did this deserve to win Best Picture?
No. It's a good film. I'll give it that. I don't think it's that year, especially. I don't think it's a Best Picture winner.
Nathan?
I mean, the only one of this list that I've seen is Raiders, which, I mean, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, it's perhaps maybe raised a bit higher by the things that came after it. And I can't speak to it where it was in 1981 when it came out, but certainly if I was going to have to sit down and pick between the two, which one am I going to watch?
Raiders is interesting because it was pretty much an instant classic. It was the highest grossing film of 1981. It got 10 Oscar nominations. It won 5.
Wow.
It actually won more than Chariots of Fire. It just didn't win the big one.
It should have won the big one.
Here's the one that I find
interesting
egregious,
context.
though. This winning best score over John Williams for Raiders of the Lost Ark is a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
Look,
That's pretty wild.
the title track to this film, I know it's super famous. It is a very memorable tune. I found the rest of the score like almost laughable.
Yeah, the score is very cropulent.
It's just so out of place in this film. Like, you know, the music that they're playing when the Americans get introduced? It's like, it sounds like parody. And then you have the John Williams score for Raiders is one of the most legendary complete film scores of all time.
Sure.
Probably not a hot take on my part.
No, I don't think that's proven, historically. I mean, clearly this is a enduring soundtrack.
It's an enduring title theme.
Well, I mean, I think it was, they did a whole, didn't they do a whole, either stage play with like more music by him or something.
They did.
I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say that it's better than Raiders of the Lost Ark or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
I just seems like, yeah, it's had its own endurance, but it is weird. I agree. It's certainly not my favorite Vangelis score either
Oh.
of a movie.
Well, here's the wild part. He wins for this. The
Mhm.
following year, he scores Blade Runner and doesn't even get nominated, which is a way better score. Like, the Blade Runner score is incredible.
Oh my gosh. Now that's an enduring,
Yes.
score.
Doesn't even
Yes.
get nominated for it.
I don't know.
But John Williams
know.
wins the following year for E.T.
Okay. Because they realized they goofed. They goofed and they're like, shoot, Mr. Williams, please don't be angry.
I think I care about this stuff way more than I should. John Williams really should have three-peated. He doesn't win for Empire Strikes Back in 1980. He doesn't win for Raiders of the Lost Ark. He wins for E.T. Should have won 3 in a row.
Fair. I don't even know what the competition was, and I agree.
I was
Certainly
good.
the
I can
most
tell you that.
enduring.
The film
Yeah.
Fame won in 1980. It's like, whatever.
Like what?
Yeah. It's not a better score than Empire Strikes Back.
Staying power. It's important.
It is. Which is something, to play devil's advocate, the Oscars is not supposed to reflect, or they can't predict, obviously. But
I think like if we're holding the Oscars to a standard to identify quality should last.
should.
That's my
Yeah.
argument.
And it shouldn't last because it won an Oscar.
And of course, viewers can sense this stuff in the moment. Like, remember in 2008 when The Dark Knight didn't even get nominated for Best Picture, and everybody was like, this is clearly the best film of the year. Like, this is a joke that it wasn't nominated.
Or I mean, even this year, everyone like, are people going to look back in 10 years and say Mikey Madison won Best Actress for that?
Hard to say. I haven't seen
Hard
it
to
yet.
say.
I know you
Hard to
have,
say.
and you really
I
liked
have,
it.
and I really liked it, but I do think like things going to look different in 10 years.
Very possible. Look what happened to The English Patient. We'll cover it eventually.
Or Jack Nicholson winning again for As Good as It Gets.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, look, I think he's good in that movie, but
That's my guy.
do you think he deserved a win over like Matt Damon for Good Will Hunting?
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. It's unanswerable. Actually, It is answerable because it's all opinion. We've been talking about Hugh Hudson a little bit throughout this episode. I mean, I have to say this is pretty impressive for your first feature film. It's pretty good work.
Big studio feature. Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah. Really weird career. He didn't really ever do anything of note after this, except have either of you heard of Greystoke?
No.
The Tarzan movie? Okay, I didn't think so. And then
Tarzan.
it's from the 80s. And then he directed a movie, which I've never seen, but we are eventually going to cover on this podcast, Anton, starring Al Pacino, called Revolution, which is a Revolutionary War movie. And it was so poorly received, Pacino did not act for 5 years after.
Ish.
And then Hugh Hudson later married Bond girl Miriam Diabo from The Living Daylights. That's probably his biggest claim to fame.
Well, he did win the Best Picture, so I mean, not Best Director.
No, he didn't get Best Director. He was nominated for this, though. I do want to acknowledge, I think this film is more celebrated in Britain than it is here in the States. I think it's worth pointing out.
I could see that. Yeah, why wouldn't it be? Right?
Right.
It'd be like a cultural thing of like, hey, we won. I don't have an attachment to the British, Olympic team.
Right.
I'm sure I would.
Nor do I. But yeah,
Right.
I wonder if we were British, would we think differently of this film?
Probably.
Maybe.
Let's acknowledge that. I
Unanswerable.
think that's good.
I think they're more prideful when it comes to Wallace and Gromit.
Understandable.
I would be too.
Paddington,
That is their Paddington. Yeah.
Paddington Bear.
Harry Potter, James Bond.
I don't know. Do they actually like Harry Potter that much? In
They
Britain?
do.
They do? Okay.
They do.
All right. I don't know if that's I could see that being one of those things that the Americans really love. But the
Oh,
British
no.
are kinda like,
They
Yeah.
love Harry
it's
Potter in Britain.
Yeah, Harry Potter, eel pies.
Anton, this was shot by our guy David Watkin. Not nominated for cinematography, which I found interesting because it's pretty well shot.
Very well shot. Very pretty film.
trying to remember.
Anything to add? Because I think we can wrap this up. I don't really have anything else to talk about when it comes to Chariots of Fire.
I'm ready to give our
No.
grades.
Well,
Meet you guys at the finish line.
yeah, Nathan, as the guest, if you want to go first and give your rating, you are welcome to.
No, you guys go first. I'll save.
Sure.
Who's it
save
going to
for
be,
you.
Anton?
Thank you so much.
I'm happy to go.
All right.
This is a very pleasant film, and it is inoffensive, and it is quite long. But I find that having not seen it for a long time, a lot of the lack of conflict isn't as offensive as I feel like it would be infuriating if I were to see it multiple times. Having that one watch through after so many years, I really did appreciate the documentarian style, or the feel of it being so biographical. And it does feel larger in life to see folks that are just absolute freaks at the best of their game, sports wise. And
Liddell was a freak.
I mean, when you put it into context, no one's beating those guys. I think that it's also just a film that had way more of an appeal with the style back in 1981, and even within the context of the time, I don't think that it should have won over Raiders of the Lost Ark. But the staying power, I have to give kudos to the theme from the film, and then also just the iconic slow-mo running on the beach. So that is to say, again, it's just a very pleasant film. Nothing offensive about it, but nothing necessarily that brings it up to such a higher just score from me. It's like slightly above average. I honestly like hover around like C+ or B-. I'm probably, I'm going to be very generous today and just say B- because it is shot really well, and again, it's just a very pleasant film, if not just very boring.
Would you ever watch it again?
No. Or at least
that is high praise for a film you'd never watch again.
I have respect for the game.
I feel like we've been pretty harsh on this. I actually think this is a pretty good film. I think it partially succeeds as a sports movie, despite really not being my cup of tea. It's not very exciting, and I think that's probably its biggest flaw. I think if you are going to make a sports drama, you need to make it exciting. I think that should be a requirement, and this film doesn't do that for me. It's well acted. It's well made. Mm-hmm. There's parts of it that I found stirring. I just think fundamentally it doesn't have enough drama to really grab my interest and hold it for 2 hours. It held my attention, but I don't know that it's something that I would ever seek out again. Like, I would watch it if it were on. The fact that it won Best Picture is laughable to me now. I think if it wasn't for the Vangelis theme and the slow motion running on the beach, I don't know if anyone would remember Chariots of Fire. And that doesn't make it bad. Like I said, I think this is pretty good. It's just not great, and there's nothing about it that really pulls me in. Aesthetically pleasing. I actually found it like a relaxing movie in a weird way. But like I said, like, it's a sports movie. It should excite me, and it just didn't. I'm kind of right there with you, Anton. I think it's definitely a better than average film. There's nothing bad in it. It's kind of bland. So I'll go C+.
Okay, C+. I thought I was going to get a B for bland.
I mean, look, you could talk me into B-. Like, I don't think there's nothing bad about it.
I actually don't have a lot to add, because you guys have basically said everything I was going to say, and I was also going to give it a B- on one clear stipulation. I don't need to rewatch it. Because if I was forced to rewatch it, that score is going to go down, which is weird to say. Like, it's
you'll penalize this film over that.
In a way, I mean, I would probably have put it as a B, maybe, if I didn't have to think about what would happen if I had to rewatch it or something like that, because it just sounds like interminable to like sit through it again. But I agree, Pat. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think if you have not seen this movie, it is worth seeing. I think it is worth seeing one time.
Really?
And that is the amount of time. Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile, like 2-ish hours or whatever. I don't think it's like bad. I think it's an interesting enough, like, here's this weird sports movie that's not really dramatic. It wasn't the worst 2 hours I've sat through before. It didn't, but I would not watch it again. Please don't make me watch it again.
Do we show this film to high school basketball teams to inspire them to do better?
No.
Not basketball teams. They wouldn't relate to it at all. You could show it to the track team.
Oh, okay. Or
maybe.
Do we
very unique film that we've covered here, Anton, because we've all
Yeah.
given it pretty high marks, and yet like none of us ever want to
wanna
see
Yeah,
watch
it
it
again.
again.
Well,
I don't-
the more I think about it, it makes sense. It hits the technical check boxes.
Yeah.
It does.
And
I
like
think
that makes sense.
technically, again, it's completely inoffensive. I don't think there are any bad or weird performances. In fact, I think everyone does pretty good at their, especially the couple main characters do a good job. I think it looks really good. I think costuming, I think the score has some iconic elements, and I think where it falls flat is it just doesn't have enough of a dramatic pull to bring you in. All of that technical stuff really lifts it up, but it falls with the dramatic part where it's just sort of like, I don't know, it could simultaneously be a B and a D at the same time, like in a weird way, like I just don't want to watch it again.
Well, that's it for Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to
Yeah.
add. I don't think anyone else
yep.
does either.
I have
I don't
I have,
need
I have
to
one
talk
thing,
about it anymore.
I have one thing to add. Nathan, thank you so much for joining
I'm glad to be here.
and chatting Chariots of Fire. You're always celebrated on this show.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure being here.
Always a pleasure to have you, Nathan. That is it for this week's edition of Why Wasn't It Better? Thanks for listening, and see you next time.